And thank God for last week. Dr. Femi did a very, very, good exposition. I wasn't here, but at least I saw the material. But it was very detailed, which is really, really, explains a lot about how we can actually raise the standard of love. So this is going to be a continuation. It won't be much of a repetition of, just reading the same thing and telling you that, okay, you must be good, you must greet those who are, I'm not just going to continue that, but it's just going to be a continuation of what we had last week. So let me just read from what we have here. It says, God knows as humans we will have to have interaction with one another, and how we do this and what we do will have an effect on the destiny of someone else, whether families, friends, couples, colleagues, brethren. In Exodus chapter 18, verse 16, Moses sat in the camp judging between the Israelites who were freed from slavery in Egypt, using the law of God as a guide to handle their differences in interaction with each other. Now, in the journey of life, God knows that, we will have to deal with one another. And while they were in Israel, God actually gave a guide to Moses, which Moses was to use, Not all of them had access to that written law at that time, but they were told. So they used to come around Moses when they have disputes, because God knows that definitely we will disagree. I will disagree with you, you will disagree with me, you will disagree with your colleagues, you will disagree with your parents, you will disagree with your husband, you will disagree with your wife, and and God knows that this, our interaction can have an effect on the destiny of someone else. Somebody can commit suicide simply because of the way the person was treated by someone the person trusted. Somebody could lose trust in humans simply because what somebody else did to him as well. And somebody can say, I would never be a Christian simply because of what somebody did to them as well. So God knows that, our interaction, He wanted us to be an example. So He gave a guide, which was when He gave the law, and Moses was like standing from morning till evening trying to resolve, conflicts between the Israelites those days. Now, today, we all know what we are supposed to do, really. We know what we're supposed to do. And most of us always would say that we do them. We know what we're supposed to do, and we do them. Maybe God says to do this when somebody does this to you. We'll say, well, I used to do that, or I'm trying to do that as well. But I want to look from a bit of a different angle for us to actually have a view, a little view, diving into, what we do and how we do what we do. So, but first, let's just start. What did Jesus say about how we treat our friends? That we talked about last week. He says, love one another as I have loved you. In John 13, verse 34 to 35, he said that a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if you love one another. And in the next one, it says, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. So, one another can be your brethren in the church, can be your family, your wife, your children, your colleagues at work, everybody that you're actually running this race together. And this is what it is. We're human beings here on a journey that actually, they came into this world and they are lost, and they're trying to find their way back to, where they came from. But not everyone will go back to where they came from. Some will go in a different direction. So human beings are like people that are on a journey that were lost, and then they are together trying to run a race. And so God wants us actually to be able to help each other in running that race so that we can get to that destination, so that we can get to that destination. So what you do, could have one effect, either good or bad, on the person that you relate with, or whomever it is. Your action can be drawing them closer to God's kingdom or be making it difficult for them even to run that race. Now, he says it's all right to do the doing, but What is wrong with the doing? And I mean, where does it all start from? I mean, what we do? Everybody will, one way, somebody. I mean, from experience we had, maybe some of us in our early age, you'll have met somebody that will tell you that, oh, I love you so much, or I love you so much. I would never do this for you. I love you, But the next, maybe some people in a relationship, the next 1 or 2 or 3 months or 4 months, the person that will almost like die for you becomes somebody else, and it feels like, no, I hate him so much, It's terrible or this, or maybe a couple that have lived together for some time, all of a sudden, everything just goes and it's like, when they see each other, the other one is like, I mean, what is inside is different from what is showing, to that person outside. As well, maybe our colleagues, maybe your colleague at work, your boss, your colleagues at work that you share things with. You have some that what they show to that person is different from what is actually inside. And so, where does it all start from? Now, God gave the law to Moses. That's we read in the New Testament what Jesus said in Mark 12:29 to 31. Now, somebody asked Jesus, he said, which of this is the greatest commandment? And Jesus said to him, that's Mark, he says, Jesus answered him, first of all, the commandment is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, and you shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. This is the first commandment. And he says the second is like it, that thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There's no other commandment greater than this. And in Luke 6:31, he tells us that as you would have men do to you, do likewise to them. Okay. And there's the first point that everything starts from. It starts from the Lordship of God. How many people have seen God with their eyes? Is there one among us that have seen God with his eyes? We have not seen God with our eyes. Okay. Now, we know him, but knowing God is by faith. By revelation, we believe God by faith. We after believing. By revelation and experiences that he reveals himself, we come to know him. Now, when we claim that we know him, there's something that points as an evidence to actually knowing God. It is love. It is love that tells us, or that tells me or you, that we know God. Because why? You know what knowing God simply means? Knowing God means having respect for his presence. Having respect for his presence. And when we do that, then what it simply means is that even when you have dealings with someone, even when the person is not there, it's not your reaction will not be based on trying to think that how should I react to this person. It's your consciousness of the presence of God and your respect for the presence of God that will determine your reaction to anything that comes your way. It's not like when something comes your way, you're trying to calculate how should I react. Okay, God says that I should react, well, and then you just act before that person. We can act. One thing with us is that we can act rightly before people. All right, that's what the person sees. But God may be seeing something different because why? When we leave that person, the reaction is completely different inside. But the outward action will look like it is love. Which is why most times we get deceived when we see people profess that I love you, and then the next minute again, it just looks like it's something else again, So, but when we surrender to the Lordship of God, because when Jesus said that word, he said the Lord, our God, is one. All right? And then it says, the Lord our God, thou shalt love the Lord thy God. He was using the word Lord. He's saying Master. What he's saying simply is that what? You surrender your rights to God. You surrender your rights to him. When you do that, if you love your wife, you don't love her simply because of what she does. Or you don't stay faithful simply because she's there. Or because she's so beautiful. No. You don't stay faithful because of that. You stay faithful because of what? Your focus is on someone else.
Yeah.
Your respect
That's right.
for the presence of God.
Amen.
So the first of the commandment is that we should respect his presence. But we don't profess that. It is an evidence of our relationship with him, or an evidence of we are losing our relationship with him, whereby we are going out of fellowship with him. If we know him before and we're beginning to stray away from that, whereby what we show is different from what is inside, what we profess is different from what is inside, then that's what the Bible calls hypocrisy. Which means that we're beginning to move away from what we knew about him. Our fellowship with him is going. We don't have respect anymore for his presence. Now let's move on very fast. The Lordship of Jesus and its effect on us. In 1 Corinthians 13 verse 8, the Bible tells us one thing, that everything else is going to cease. In this journey, God gave us so many gifts to fight the good fight of the faith. There's prophecy, there's working of miracles, there's the gift you can pray, you can teach. You are the best teacher, and you are the best speaker, and you can do it more than this brother or more than that brother. But God tells us one thing: all that is going to cease. When we get to heaven, we won't have need for any teacher. We will not have need for the most beautiful person. We will not have need for the richest person. We will not have need for the most educated person. We will not have need for the person who can work miracle the most. He's the most anointed among all the men that God created. There will not be need for any of that. But the only thing that will just be is love. Because why? God actually is love.
Amen.
Because he is love. And the evidence of our surrender to his lordship is actually love. Now, in 1 John 4, 7 to 8, let's look at what it says there. Now, it says, let me read that, 1 John 7 to 8. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is God. And everyone that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God. I'm reading from the Old King James. And knoweth God. He that loveth not, knoweth not God, for God is love. What does it mean? Which means that what? When you don't love, you don't have respect for God, you don't know him. At least, if your reaction is your outward reaction is different from what is inside, whereby your action says A, but your heart is saying B, then you don't have respect for God. Somebody will tell somebody, okay, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do that for you, don't worry, I'm going to do it for you. But deep down within him, he's saying in himself that, don't mind him, why would I give it to him? Does he deserve it? So, and, so that the expression inside is different. He may give it eventually, but what he says inside is that, let me just give him to him or give it to her. I'm just doing it anyway, The heart is saying something different. The heart is angry, but the action is showing as if he actually cares, So, we are told in here as well, that like we just read, that when we don't actually love, that is that if the lordship of God is not actually there, then we don't actually, we cannot love. And we will only be doing the outward action, Your person that you relate with will actually see something, but what is inside of you will be different from what they see. The Bible spoke of the word truth. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth. And everything he told us is the truth. There's no hiding, Amen. So in the verse 8, I think I've read the verse 8 as well. Now, in verse 20, in 1 John chapter 4, verse 20, it tells us that hatred itself is an indication that we are actually deceiving ourselves. If the person knew God before, it simply means that what? He's going out of fellowship with God. He's going out of fellowship with God. Or he never knew God at all. I read what it says. Thank you very much. If a man love God and hate his brother, he is a liar. For he that loveth not his brother, whom he hath seen, how can he love God whom he had not seen? So what he's saying is that what? If I claim that, my action towards someone is like showing, like I love the person, but deep down within, I hate the person, and I'm making claims that, that I love him. It's simply saying that what? Either I'm losing my fellowship with God, I'm actually going out of fellowship with him, because why? If you know him, then you cannot actually be you can't, what in a nutshell, the summary is that what? You cannot be showing what is different from what is inside, because God likes truth. God will even prefer it. If you don't like somebody, if you tell him point blank, you know what? God can work with the person who will tell you that I don't like you. I'm madly angry with you. I hate you to every length. God can work with you to correct you. And the person who will tell you that, oh, I love you, oh, you are good, you are that, but deep within, he's saying something else. Which was why Jesus criticized the Pharisees a lot. He called them, he said, hypocrites. The same people that will invite him for dinner. And then, when they invite him for dinner and they will have a chat with him and that, and there's always a trigger. When he does that thing that triggers what brings out the true thing in them, they will come out. Either he does something that hurts their pride, then they go into a corner. Because why? They did not know God. But they pray. They pray. They give to the poor. They give to people who are in need. They help people who are in need. They will give to somebody who is in need, and they will pray and they will do all those charitable things. But because they did not actually know God, and maybe they thought they did. And what happens? There's always a trigger that brings out what is inside. The same people who felt like this Jesus was actually blaspheming God and was doing things against God. And they are the same one that, okay, they are trying to look for a means in the law to murder him. And since they couldn't even find, they went to go and look for people who would tell lies against him. Because why? That was what is inside them. They did not have fellowship with God. It was, to them, they were being good, they were doing all those things that they were doing. Probably maybe some of them have not even killed somebody before. But there's a trigger that brings out what was inside them. That trigger was what Jesus did. He brought out what they had inside. Now, let's look at samples from the scriptures of, treatment of our neighbors. What can we learn from some people in the Bible? I mean, what can we really learn from them? So, before I read the first one, let's not forget what we said. The starting point is a surrender to the lordship of God, because that's what everything rests on. The second one, which was to love our neighbor, hangs on our respect for the presence of God, our love for God. Now, the Pharisees, I'll read the first one here now. The Pharisees gave charitably to the needy, but did not know or have respect for God. Now, Saul was ready to fight and not to let the kingdom God gave him or took away from him because of his disobedience. We know the story of King Saul. God gave him the kingdom. This man saw miracle. When God gave him the kingdom, when it came to Samuel, Samuel told him where his father's ass was. He prophesied. He had spiritual encounter, experiences. But yet, what was inside him could not allow him to let go for God. When God says, okay, I am taking the kingdom away from you. The man went, killed all the prophets. Killed all the prophets. And after he did that again, he tried as much as he could to get rid of David, simply because why? He wanted that kingdom to remain for his household. But was it not God that gave it to him in the first place? Did God not send a prophet who even did so many signs that he himself prophesied? He did so many miracles as well that he experienced. But yet, because he did not surrender himself to the lordship of God in the first place, which was why he was always going against what God said. Saul, do this, he will go against that. Saul, do that, he will go against it. So he couldn't let go because why? His human nature brought out what was inside. Now, let's look at Joseph again. Now, someone else that actually had an encounter with people in the Bible. Joseph loved his brothers who sold him into slavery and suffered as a result of their actions. Now, Joseph, you will remember from experience when Potiphar's wife came to him. What did he do? He ran out. What did he say? What did he say? Because of my master. He said, how can I do this? Against God. His focus was on his respect for God. Because why? He had a relationship. He had fellowship with God. And he had respect for the presence of God. And he ran off. Now, this young man has been in slavery for so many years. The brothers who sold him into slavery, when he found them. Now listen to what he said. In Genesis chapter 50, verse 20-21. But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now therefore, fear ye not, I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spake kindly unto them. The word he said was that you meant this for evil, but his focus was on God. He actually, you see, everything that happens to people that have that surrender to God, so they don't fight for themselves. If God does not fight for you, then you just leave it. If you are with your husband or with your wife and you feel like, oh, this is the way you treat me, or I'm not going to, no. You will if he's going to, let him have the whatever. Let God be your reward. If God does not fight for you, we'll continue to wait for him to fight for you.
Amen.
Amen. But because this is from what we can see from Joseph, it took so many years, but he was actually just waiting on God. He wasn't waiting to revenge. He wasn't waiting to pay them back for what they did. He actually he sees God. He saw God in what he was going through. In the suffering, in the action of people towards him. He was seeing God in it. Now, if we move on. Now, look at David. He says, how could a man be bold to curse a king who was walking in the company of soldiers, but fleeing the consequence of his adultery, and no man touched him? Now, when David committed adultery with Bathsheba, God told him what was going to happen. That you have done this, but I will raise up from among your sons somebody who will come against you. Now, in 2 Samuel chapter 16, that thing that God said actually happened. Absalom came against his father. Now, when he came against David, David took it as the punishment of his sin from God. All right? Now, imagine you are the king of UK or the queen of UK. Or, let's not say UK, there's democracy here. One of these African countries whereby the leader, you understand? You are the president. And then something actually happened. And then you are going on the way. Somebody that you know comes up and begins to curse you. Foolish man, stupid man, this. God punish you, God catch you, Then he begins to say all that to you. While you are working with soldiers, they are on your left and on your right. Even if you don't say anything, would the soldiers not quickly go and meet that man and, But David's mighty men knew whom he was. David's mighty men knew whom he was. Because why? He had respect unto God.
Yeah.
And one of them asked him, we're going to read that this man should die. Should I go and kill him? David said, no, leave him. Let him curse me. Because why? God is punishing me because of what I have done. He was seeing God even in what? So the bottom line is that what? When we surrender our lordship to him, we don't have rights anymore. We give it to him. So we don't really fight. Because when we keep trying to fight for ourselves, then we'll begin to plan our own line of action against what somebody has done to us, you know. But when we just leave everything for him, if he doesn't fight, well, we'll leave it for him.
That's right.
You know. Let's read what in Samuel 5. Let me show 1 Samuel 5. So when King David came to Bahurim, behold, there came out a man of the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera. He came forth and cursed still as he came. The verse 6 says, and he cast stones at David, and all the servants of King David, and all the people, and all the mighty men were on his right hand and on his left. Now, same 1 Samuel 16, verse 13 says, as David and his men went by the way, Shimei went along on the hillside over against him, and cursed as he went, and threw stones at him, and cast dust on the king. On the king. I mean, if you are a manager in your place of work, and you have one very small, employee who is just very, very low, and it insults you to every length, what would you do if you have the power to deal with that employee? I mean, and you don't do anything, you just look as if, what would the employee think? Oh, this lady or this man is fool, he's a fool. He's a fool. Like David here will look like, oh, he's a fool. I can just do whatever I like to him, And you know the problem, it's unfortunate, let me say this way, that even among us believers, when we meet people who surrender their rights to God, at times we think it is a weakness.
That's true.
Or they are foolish. Yeah. Simply because why? They just let go for God. And they will continue to now do what will hurt them more and more and more, and they don't see anything, So, we can learn from what David did here. Now, because of time, all the scriptures are in there. But there's something that happened to this man. David went and fought that battle against Absalom. Absalom lost. Now, when David came back, to Jerusalem, the house of Benjamin, about 1,000 of them, and Shimei, they went to go and meet David. And this man came before the king, and he knelt down, and it was the man who was cursing before, who was, when he had the power that this king is about to fall, his son is coming with mighty armies, he was cursing and cursing. But when he realized that the king actually won the battle on his back, so he became a good man then. Then he knelt down before the king and was begging that, I'm sorry, please have mercy upon your servant. But what did David do? The same soldiers among the house of, I think, Zeruiah, that says, this man should die. David said, no. God has still made me the king. Nobody should die today. I forgive him. And David, when David was king, there's somebody in the house of, Jonathan, Mephibosheth, who was paralyzed, when he fell, when he was young. David took care of Mephibosheth, He took him, he ate from David's table. Now when Absalom came against David, David left the palace with his families. But Mephibosheth did not follow him. And David asked Mephibosheth, why didn't you follow me? He actually gave his response. His response looked true. But David did not feel offended. Because the bottom level of the action is that what? Because he was surrendered, he surrendered to the lordship of God. So his action was not based on thinking of what you have done, what should I do back to you? No. Everything is God. If God does not fight well, he takes it that way. So what do we learn from all these things? If God don't fight, if we surrender our lordship to him, whatever relationship, people will say we are foolish or you are weak. We used to read about Paul. They say Paul is weak, Paul is that, Paul is this. The man that when he walks in the midst of Christians, every one of them will flee. But when he became one, they said he is weak. Why do you think he's weak? Did he not say that we are fools? That God has put us apostles as, a spectacle. He said, we are fools for Jesus. You know what he meant? He has no right. Because he's giving his right up to God.
Yeah.
If they criticize him and say, who are you? Him that actually funded the church. Because he has given his right to God. I'm sure among the leaders of those churches there could have been among those that were doing that. If it was somebody who was not really surrendering his leadership to God, he would look at how to remove the pastor. Paul would have done that. He could have done that if he wants to. Because he would have had a reaction to, this church, they are doing this to me. Then he will come and look at what I'm going to do. Go to some of the elders, okay, take off this pastor. I don't want him there anymore. Bring somebody else. But no. Whatever they do, whatever criticism, if God does not fight, they leave it.
Amen.
When Paul rebuked Peter was the head of the church. Paul rebuked him before everybody. But if God did not fight for Peter did not fight for himself. They've all learned that. And he helped their fellowship.
Yes.
So, I'm going to leave the one of the Mephibosheth on the remaining part. We can read that one later. Now, Stephen was somebody else that was stoned. Or when they were stoning him, he was actually seeing Jesus standing. Because of his surrender to the lordship of Jesus, he was praying that, Father, he said, Lord, don't count this sin against them. It would have been painful for people to be throwing stones on your head, hitting your skull, hitting you, and you're falling down. And then, if he was going to be on his own human nature, he would be thinking that what do I do to them? He would be like, may God avenge me of you, or may God do this. No. But because why? He has surrendered his lordship to God. His focus was not on what they have done to him. He was praying to, he was looking on God. Well, please have mercy upon them, Just have mercy upon them. So, and I'm sure maybe that prayer was one of the things that got that man, Saul, who became Paul, to become a Christian. Because he was the one carrying the clothes for all of them that killed Stephen. That Stephen prayed for, that God should not count it against them. And it was the same Paul that blessed every one of us. That he stood, he endured the lot as well. He went, he preached. They could not walk. They couldn't do so many things the way they would have loved to be free. Because they sold everything and they all died. They were all killed in a terrible way. Because why? They yielded everything to God. Even up to the point of, how, if they are going to die for what they are doing, they died for it. Now, so, what can we learn from Jesus' treatment of people who were against him? His words were gracious. In Luke 4:22, it says, and all bear witness and wondered at the gracious words which proceeded out of his mouth. And they said, is not this Joseph's son? When God has favored you, when God has loved you, we will be gracious to other people.
That's right. Yeah.
We'll be gracious. So we will not really go about trying to look at, God says love your neighbor, love your enemies. I want to look at how well you are doing. And I say, no. He's not loving his enemies. He's not loving, or he's not showing that sign of doing that. No. We will be gracious in the sense that we don't see the wrong that he's doing. We only just wonder that, why is he doing this? We wonder that, why is he doing this? But we don't really go with trying to tell him that, no. You don't show any sign of being a Christian. You are not loving your brothers, or you are not loving your this, or I don't see a sign of Christian in you. If we're acting that way, even our own character will be questionable. Because why? Before God, every human, we all actually are not perfect. And God looks at our surrender to his lordship. He cares about what we do, but he's much more interested in our surrender to his lordship. Why do I say this? When David fell, David did all these things that we just spoke about. When the man fell, and the prophet went to him, what did David do? People were there. He didn't do like Saul to say, please, don't say it before everybody. Come. Say it privately. The man began to, plead God, before everybody. when he fell. And when he was speaking to Nathan, Nathan said, God has forgiven you. So who am I, or who are you? If somebody among the men of God today falls somewhere, and they say that that minister, no, I will never hear his preaching anymore because he has committed adultery or he has done this. You know what? There is no difference between if I look at somebody and I thought about something in my heart, and if somebody else is out there, he's always committing that sin with somebody somewhere. If I fall in my thought with someone, but I've not physically gone to do it, there's no difference before God as far as God is concerned. There's no difference. If you have in your heart, falling in your heart, which was what Jesus pointed out when he was saying that if somebody lost or if he does this, he said he has done it. So which means that it's not different from the person who physically goes to go and do it as well. So if somebody has been caught that, oh, this person has done this or he has done that, but when God has favored us, we should be gracious. Gracious in the sense that if we can be able to help that person, if we're not close to the person, or if we can pray for the person, because we're all on a journey trying to find our way home. We're trying to find our way home. And in that home, there's not going to be you're the best singer. There's not going to be I'm the best whatever. There's not going to be this is the one that has the greatest anointing to do miracles. Or this is the one that had the church that had millions of congregation. There's not going to be anything of such there. So all those just ends here. The only thing that actually goes there is just love. There's not going to be that, oh, the property that I have, it is 10. Or I left someone, I took the property, I took the quarter of it, I only left him with 1/3 or whatever. There's not going to be any of that there. The only thing that will be there is just love. It's just love that will remain. So, the words of Jesus, he was gracious very quickly. The friend who betrayed him, Judas, when he saw Judas, the man that was planning to betray him, he said, friend. So where are you coming from? He still used the word friend. His emotion was not like bitterness or anger towards that man who actually has gone to bring soldiers that will make him go through what he knew he was going to go through. And also, when he was being crucified, he said, Father, forgive them. He said, for they know not what they do. Now, in conclusion to this, a surrender to the Lordship of Jesus will be the first part of our raising the standard true expression of love. Because if God does not have control over us, then we may do the outward expression of love, but inwardly, our hearts may be saying something else. And that's what God calls hypocrisy. And God actually detests that a lot. God will help someone who is struggling with something, but he's being sincere. God will help someone who if he hates a brother, and he will show it, that making him feel like, or maybe he's having that feeling towards the brother, and he's telling the brother, this is the way I feel, but I don't want to feel this way. And when he sees the brother, he's not trying to do as if maybe he really, it's nice. He will show you that, yes, God will work with that person to overcome that problem, than the one who will see the person and will pretend as if, it's nice or everything is well. And then when he goes in the corner, when he turns away, it's completely something else. Amen. So, we're going to pray. I want us to just, pray, talk to God, because if we're going to raise the standard of love, the first is our fellowship with God. And if we say we have fellowship with Him, but what we do is what we do outwardly is different from what we show inside, then something actually is wrong. Either we're actually going out of that fellowship. So I want us to pray and say that, Father, help us as a church, because the Lord says that we should love one another, even as He has loved us. I want us to pray that, Father, make us to be one as a church. As families, make us to be one. As humans, help us to have a heart that actually surrenders to you, to be able to let you walk in us, to love every human. Shall we just pray?